On this particular brew, and actually almost on all of our brews, we're using water that we collected from a rain catchment system for this beer. We live out here in the country, and the well water is extremely hard, really high in iron and other minerals. Basically what that does is, as the dissolved iron that's naturally in the water because it's being pulled down from so deep in the ground, once that iron is exposed to oxygen, there's a natural bacteria that lives in the solution, and when it's exposed to oxygen, just like yeast, it's an aerobic organism, and it starts to break down that iron. And what that causes is it produces hydrogen sulfide gas, which is the rotten egg smell that you get from well water, especially in the summertime. So what that does is it causes a lot of problems, because as hydrogen sulfide gas is produced, pH goes up, and high pH is not conducive to a good fermentation. A good starting pH is usually around 5.1, 5.2, and so we've messed around with the well water a lot, and so one of the things that we did was we built a rain catchment system so that we would have essentially neutral water. And one of the things that when we're working with distilled water or rainwater is that basically, especially running water through a filter, that you need to add some calcium back to it, because basically the yeast needs that calcium. And so one of the things that's real common that most people do when using distilled water or treated water is actually adding one of the things, gypsum, which basically is, this is a food and pharmaceutical grade. We also use out in the garden when we're dressing our compost, and it's basically calcium sulfate. And so that adds some calcium back to the solution. And it's actually important to add that to the mash, because that's what helps, having a good mash pH is crucial for proper conversion. And that really helps the enzymes that are present in the mash to produce sugars. And so that's one of the things that we do when we're using the rainwater or distilled water, is add a certain amount. And on this particular brew, this 26-gallon brew, we added about 5 tablespoons of the calcium sulfate into the mash right when we initially dough'd in. And that gave us a mash at about 5.3, which is still within a good window. Like 5 to 5.5 is acceptable for a mash pH. And so actually I'll take you over right now and show you where we get our water from. Basically all the water is collected from this roof, and it runs into this 1,100-gallon water barrel right here, which has a food grade sump pump, and we run that back and over to the brewery, follow the hose, and that hooks up to our water filter. And so basically we have a carbon filter, and that basically catches any particulates that made it through the filter that's actually installed into the gutter. And so that acts as another filter and pulls anything out, bugs and etc., that made its way into the water catchment system. And then from there we fill the hot liquor tank, and yeah, so that's where we get our water from. But always super important when using distilled water or water from a catchment system to add calcium back to it.